As you already know, Brexit did not happen immediately after the Brexit referendum in 2016. There were exhausting negotiations between the UK and the EU, first about the exit of the UK, and then about the future relationship between the EU and the UK. Michel Barnier will remember. After the official Brexit on January 31st in 2020, where the UK officially left the EU and with it the Parliament, there was a transitional period until December 31st in 2020 to implement the new relationship. There are still some longer transitional periods for some areas, but this was the first very important one. And people are talking a lot about the level of preparation for Brexit on different sides, or even the lack of preparation. So in a number of my videos, I give you an overview about the extent of preparations by different countries involved, and of course the UK and the EU. And today I will tell you about the preparations in Spain. In the aftermath of the Brexit referendum held on June 23rd in 2016, in which the United Kingdom voted to leave the European Union, Spain, like other EU member states, began making preparations to navigate the implications of the UK's departure. The UK, as I said, officially left the EU on January 31st in 2020 and entered into a transition period that lasted until December 31st in 2020. And during this transition period, the UK continued to follow EU rules while negotiations were going on, and they wanted to determine the future relationship between the UK and the EU. Spain, as a neighboring country and a significant trading partner with the UK, had vested interest in ensuring a smooth transition and minimizing disruptions in various sectors, such as trade, tourism, and citizens' rights. And as usual, of course, I have some key preparations and actions taken by Spain during this time for you today. Spain took steps to guarantee the rights of British citizens residing in the country, and of course Spanish citizens living in the UK. During the transition period, citizens retained their existing rights and efforts were made to secure their long-term legal status post-Brexit. And Spain, along with the rest of the EU, engaged in negotiations with the UK to establish a future trade relationship. The focus was on maintaining favorable trading conditions and minimizing tariff and non-tariff barriers on trade. Spain prepared for potential changes in customs procedures and border management due to the UK's departure from the EU single market and the customs union. And this involved adapting customs infrastructure, information technology systems, and staffing at ports of entry to handle increased checks and administrative procedures. And Spain made efforts to ensure that tourism, a vital industry for the country, would not be adversely affected by Brexit. Measures were taken to minimize disruptions to travel, such as working on visa arrangements for British tourists. Given the significant interaction between Spanish and British fisheries, Spain worked on adjusting its fishing policies and quotas in anticipation of changes in access to UK waters. And preparations were made to address potential disruptions in transportation, including air travel and road transport, to and from the UK. And Spain participated in negotiations to determine the regulatory alignment between the UK and the EU in various sectors, such as product standards and financial services. And Spanish authorities engaged in public communication campaigns to inform citizens, businesses, and stakeholders about the potential impacts of Brexit and the steps they needed to take to prepare. As the transition period's end date approached without a finalized trade agreement, it was hard. Spain, like other EU member states, engaged also in contingency planning to manage the potential disruptions that could arise from a no-deal Brexit scenario. It's important to note that the specifics of Spain's Brexit preparations have evolved there and, of course, changed again as negotiations between the UK and the EU progressed. The eventual signing of the EU-UK Trade and Cooperation Agreement on December 24th in 2020 provided then a framework for the future relationship between the two entities, which helped mitigate some of the potential disruptions that otherwise might have occurred. Before the end of the transition period on December 31st in 2020, Brexit preparations were considered highly important, and that for all affected countries, both within the European Union and the United Kingdom. The transition period, as I said, began after the UK officially left the EU on January 31st in 2020, and it allowed time for both parties to negotiate their future relationship and to make those necessary arrangements. And as I mentioned several times, some prepared very well for all possible kinds of Brexit, and others, well, they haven't done their homework until this day. And that's the reason why I think it's important to make these 29 videos. And if you want to know something else right now, the next video is right here in the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.